So, welcome back. We are on day 2 of the question that I have been asking, the most frequently asked question that I get from writers or aspiring authors. And we're going to dive into that in a second. But you guys, I have a funny little story for you. But before we dive in, for those of you who are new to me, hey, I am Terrell PA. I am a motivational success and writing coach. I help purpose-driven entrepreneurs create more income, impact, and visibility by creating your signature service, writing your book, and building a business around that. So hello. I am the author of My Broken Stiletto, A Woman's Guide to Up-Leveling Your Faith, Finances, and Fashion. I am also the host of the TT Street Show podcast, which is now on KTV, on Roku, so you can watch it on demand, or you can listen to it on all your media streams. So, hello. That's enough about me, right? That's a lot. I felt like that was a lot. In any event, so the funniest thing happened to me this morning. I'm just going to share this because it was just like super funny, and we all need to laugh. So around, I don't even know what time it was. I want to say around 5 a.m., around 5 o'clock this morning, something happened. I woke up, and my window is right, my bed is right in front of my window. And so I woke up, and as I glazed, so I had like I have a curtain, but it's like a sheer curtain, and then I have a blind. So I had the blind like halfway up so that I could get a breeze coming in, right? And I didn't hear anything, but I felt the wind. I think that's probably what woke me up, but I don't even think the sun was up yet. It was starting to come up, and I happened to like turn my head. So I turned my head to the other side, but I glazed out of the window. And so I live between two houses, right? So I'm in New Jersey, and we're all separated by, like, the block I live on, we're separated by a driveway. And so my neighbor's house, I could see on the side, something was sticking out. I couldn't see what it was. And so I'm looking, and I'm like, what is that? And I didn't want to wake up my husband. And so I'm like, what is this thing? And so, I'm looking. And I swear, you guys, the image was like someone, like a skeleton, a bald head skeleton. And so I started freaking out. And so I woke up my husband. I'm like, I'm shaking him, babe. He's like, half sleep, like, yeah. He was really good too, because I was like, I'm like, who wakes someone up at this early, right? And so he was like, yeah, babe, what? And I'm like, what? Look out of here. And I'm like whispering, like, what do you see? And he's like, I just see like a piece of rust on the side of the house where the wires are. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. And as I was thinking, I was like, wow, it's interesting how perception from one person is different from the perception of others, right? And so I was like, wow, this is really interesting, because I saw something totally different. Now, after I, of course, really woke up, I saw what he saw, which was the rust where the wires were. And it was like a plaque. It looks like something they built on to protect the wires and whatnot. But when I glanced at it, it looked like a skeleton. It did. Now, mind you, I will tell you all, so that you don't think I'm a lunatic, okay? I have been watching a lot of CSI and a lot of Law and Order since I've been on quarantine. That has been my thing, right? So yeah, that was my morning this morning. I wanted to share that with you because perception is everything, right? So I hope you have learned something from that. So now that you know a little bit about how my day has started, now we're going to get into the good. So if you're watching this on a replay, say hello. Say, let me know where you're watching from. Say something so that I know that you are watching. This is resonating with you. Okay, so this is day 2 of the live stream series that I'm doing. And I've decided to answer the question, which is, how do I get started with my story because it's so difficult? So if you have a difficult story, then this live stream is for you. Okay, so this is a three-part answer because not only do I want you to take action, but I really want you to absorb what I'm saying. This is why I didn't put it all in one video. Okay, so today is day 2. Yesterday we covered day 1, which was yesterday. The first part of this answer was to declutter, right? Declutter your space, because that is in fact what you think about is plays a big part on your mindset, and that could be causing some blockage. So if you haven't, go back and watch the first video and then come back to this if you're watching this on the replay. Okay, so you know the first part of the question is to get clear on your clutter, your surroundings, the things that it's in your environment, right? You want to clear up those things, right? And for me, like when not only when I was writing my book, and I did have a lot of parts of my story that was pretty difficult to go back, but that brings me to my number 2 point of answer to the question, which is, you know, I recently was speaking to someone, and you know, she was saying how difficult her story is, and whenever I talk to any authors, the first question I ask is, especially if you have if you're uncertain, or you're just like, if you're in a frenzy and you're like, ooh, I don't even know how much I should be sharing. You know, I'm still not over certain parts of my story, right? So this is the part where I want you to really, really pay attention and to give yourself some grace, okay? So make sure that you have healed before you have started your story, okay? This is the question that I ask everyone who gets into my program, who is in the Writer's Concierge Blueprint. If you have inquired, or we've been on a phone call, a clarity call, the first question, you know, after you have told me about what your story is about, the second thing that we talk about is, okay, if it's a hard part to your story, where are you in the process? Okay, and that's super important. Why? Because you're going to be talking about your story over and over again, right? And so it's counterintuitive, right? It's counterintuitive. And why is it counterintuitive? It's counterintuitive because writing is therapeutic, right? Writing is therapeutic. So you may be saying, well, if I'm writing, isn't that a form of therapy? It is a form of therapy. But however, you don't want to be dealing with the first part of therapy as you are writing, meaning that should not be the first time that you have dealt with whatever it is. For instance, so let's say you've been in an abusive marriage, right? And you're like, you know, I've been in this abusive marriage, and you know, maybe it's only been, it could be 5 years, right? Maybe you've been out of that for 5 years, and you're like, you know what, I'm ready to tell my story. I'm ready to, you know, help other women and show how I got through this, right? But if you haven't dealt with those issues until you actually got to your computer and started writing, then you have not truly healed, right? And so you want to make sure that you have broken through every single layer of that, right? And so yes, I do recommend that, you know, if things are difficult, that there is some kind of therapy, that you have dealt with those issues either with a professional, or you know, really just take the time with a licensed psychologist or someone in that field that can help you throughout the process, because it will be a disadvantage if you just try to write your way through the problems in your book, right? So yeah, writing is healing, but that's not the first time that you want to have dealt with those issues. So it's important that if your story is difficult, like my story was very difficult. I had a very tremendous. I can never say this word. I had a very difficult childhood, and there was a lot of things that had taken place where I had to, as I was writing my book, when I was reflecting back, I had to pick and choose. Okay, what stories am I going to add? What stories am I not going to add? But I had already healed from those wounds, right? So it was easy for me to write through it. Yes, it was painful at times when you're writing and you're reflecting back. That's not what I'm not talking about reflecting back and you may shed some tears, you have a release. I'm talking about if you have not dealt with actually the healing process of those steps, right? If you haven't talked about, how not only you have moved past it, but the psychology after all of that, right? And I think it's important to really understand that if you have not healed from a particular part of your story, then you may want to omit it and leave it out. Or you may want to get some therapy around it first before you start writing. That way you can be clear, you can be concise, you can show up in a way that is powerful, and that the people who need your story, then they will be able to come to you for different things afterwards, right? Because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, as you're writing your story, you end up at times having a following, right? And people will come to you for other services. So you may have a speaking engagement, and if you have not healed from that, if you haven't healed from whatever you have been through, and now you're reflecting back, it's going to be very difficult to talk about it over and over again, right? It could be something as simple as just giving a simple talk of your book. Maybe you have a book club, or maybe you are, speaking to a group of women, and they're asking you specific questions about, the incident that you have written about. If you are not clear on how you have healed from it, you don't want to be in front of those women bawling, crying, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I allowed this to happen, right? You want to be like, yes, I went through this and now I am okay. And if I can do it, you can do it, right? So if your story is difficult, I want you to know that yes, you can write about it. Yes, there are ways to get through it. But number one, you want to make sure that you have healed so that your mental capacity is strong, so that you are protected, so that you are in a place where you are not broken, okay? So the name of my book is called My Broken Stiletto, and I probably should share my story more. So I will tell you this. The reason why I named my book My Broken Stiletto, right, is because it's a play on words. So one point in my life, I was actually broken, okay? And then, so I talked about my low self-esteem, the issues of just, growing up in a family where, there was a lot of things that were going on. There was some abuse that happened. But of course, there was, a lot of colorism. And, that can be difficult for a young lady, right? And so growing up, because my mom is a fair skin color, my brothers, and here I am, the dark one, right? And so I talk about that in my book, how I had to rebuild my self-esteem, right? Because at one point I was broken, and then I had to rebuild that, right? And then I physically broke my stiletto in my job, right? And so in corporate, I was working for one of the largest banks. At the age of 19, I was running a multi-million-dollar branch, and I was just thrown into this position, and all of these things were taking place, right? I was a manager responsible for people who were older than me, and coming from a place of not having much, right? And trying to juggle all of these things, it took some healing, right? And so I could not have written this book when I was going through it, because I was still going through it, right? I had to wait until I was healed, right? So it took some time. I just wrote my book back in 2018. And a lot of this has taken place over 15, 20 years ago, right? So it's important that you really do the work and understand that there is no right or wrong way, but know that you want to protect yourself in a way so that you are not struggling to talk about your story, okay? So if you have a difficult story, meaning that you have some trauma, you have had some things that have happened to you, and now you have moved past it, right? Then yes, you're ready to move forward. But if you're still on the fence where you're like, oh, I don't know what other people are going to think, or you have fear and doubts and all of those things that come up, just know that that's normal. But what's not normal is if you're still feeling that pain and that hurt and that misery, then that's when you want to go and talk to someone and work that out before you start your story, okay? So, I hope this was helpful. If it is, make sure you share this out. Please share this out on your page, share it in a group, share it with whoever you know that needs to hear this message, okay? So as you all know, I'm on a mission this year to help 50 aspiring writers to become authors, okay? And so if this is you, I would love to speak to you about your specific story, what you have going on, and how I can be of assistance to you. The doors to my Writer's Concierge Blueprint is open, and I'll be talking more about that tomorrow. But for today, I would love to speak to you if you are someone who, you know, you may be on the fence, like, okay, well, I'm healed from my wounds, and I'm ready to, you know, move forward. But maybe you still have some doubts and some fears. Let's talk about that so that we can work through it, okay? My little one is here. She is wanting me now. She wants my attention, so I'm gonna hop off. So remember, tomorrow we're going to finish up with the last part of this series on exactly how to get started when your story is difficult, okay? So that's what I have for you today. If this has been helpful, let me know what stood out for you. Where are you in the process? You want to say hi? You want to say bye?
Hi.
Okay, can you get down for a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Let me know what has stood out for you, what has really resonated with you, and let's take it to the next level, right? I hope that you will be one of my 50 authors that I will be helping over the summer to be an author and getting ready for, of course, the fall and Black Friday and all of those wonderful things. So if this is you, click the link above this video, get on my calendar, and let's talk about how to get your book out this year, okay? So that is it. Have a good day, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.